Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to On the Mic with Mike King here. This is part of the Mike King Biz Media Network, ESPN Richmond 106.1, International Business Growth Radio, Saturdays, 10 a.m. Eastern, as well as The Breeze. I'm there with the great folks over at The Breeze. Mike King went to music. No, I'm not doing music. No, I am not doing music. I am talking to all the great people. Hey, so you can follow me on social platforms on the Mike with Mike King Biz. Alrighty, so we talked to the best and the brightest. We talked to organizations out there making a change. There's one that everyone knows. They're providing a great service. Feedmore is in the house. Welcome to the program, sir.
Mike, thanks so much. I'm Aaron McClellan, Chief Development Officer at Feedmore. Glad to be here.
So the development officer is now. I joke with Nanette Shore, and she takes it. She tells me, Mike, don't say we're out there shaking people down for money. But it's not. It's a relationship business.
Absolutely. It's all you're connecting people, money, and ideas for the greater good.
You know what? You said that. I like that one. All right. So really quickly, let's get the Feedmore story.
Yes, Feedmore story. Okay, food banking is not. It's been around for a long time. Okay, in the greater Richmond area and part of Central Virginia, Feedmore is our core hunger relief organization. What does that mean? That means we work through about 250 agencies to make sure we get food from retailers, from producers. We get that out into the community as quickly as possible. We do Meals on Wheels, getting food to seniors, and we work with our kids backpacks in the greater Richmond area, kids cafes. And we just launched a new bus program that's going out to the community, taking food to kids out and about.
So did Feedmore go through a name change? What was it? Okay, so let's talk about
history.
The history of that, because one of the things from a branding business perspective, everyone knows the name Feedmore now, and it's synonymous with what you guys do.
Sure, absolutely. So way back in 1967, Richmond had Meals on Wheels. You know where Three Monkeys is downtown? There was an organization that started Meals on Wheels in Richmond. Okay, that went on for a long time. In 1980, the Central Virginia Food Bank was formed from about 40 different church congregations. And in 2006, those two organizations decided to get together to build a new community kitchen. Both organizations were looking to do that independently. And some of the smartest board members got together and said, why don't we do this together? We can do a lot more. And that's how that conversation around merging happened to create the Feedmore brand. And like you said, it's synonymous with feeding people who need help.
One of the things is that how far out do you guys go?
Yeah, great question. So we serve the Northern Neck all the way down to North Carolina, halfway to Williamsburg, then halfway to Charlottesville. That's 29 counties and 5 cities in our area.
I think when people think you guys, they don't think of that area as that big. They think it's right here. So we pre-pandemic, you guys are rolling along. You understand how the business works. You understand it's hard, but it's understandable. It's doable. We know how to do it. And then the pandemic hits. One of the things I remember seeing you guys deal with was how to get those meals to seniors, the transportation side of it, the logistics side of. Okay, so we don't have people to drive the vehicles. We can't take it to the people. We can't do all those things. How did you guys merge, I guess, make it through that point?
What a great question, Mike. And I think, it's the darndest business. You don't know exactly where the food's coming from that you're going to put back in the community. You don't know exactly where those dollars are going to come. And you don't know exactly where those volunteers are coming. So March of 2020, everybody remembers this time vividly. The demand for food went up about 50% in 6 weeks. So we saw that really strain households when people were under or unemployed. The health concerns. You mentioned volunteers. Obviously, when we're doing meals to seniors who are already immunocompromised, we have a lot of volunteers that are the same thing. They're all a lot of retirees. So we went from delivering 5 days a week to just 1 day a week. And the challenge with that is not just the nutrition, Mike. It's also that sense of community and making sure that you have somebody to talk to on a daily basis.
Because that's the part. The people bring food, but it's the human connection.
It's a wellness check. Absolutely.
It is a wellness check.
Absolutely. And we know that mental health, it's a huge part of it. Sometimes we've got folks that don't talk to a single person all day except for that Meals on Wheels driver. So it's a huge piece for us. You mentioned, obviously, with the business focus of your show, while we rely on over 200 volunteers to make our mission run, sometimes we have challenges. We have challenges in South Richmond. We have challenges in getting some drivers for the Tri-Cities. So DoorDash came to the rescue.
Really?
And about 5 or 10% of the routes that we run is helped through DoorDash. That's not a permanent solution for us. It's sort of a safety valve we're able to use, but we're using a modern technology platform to help offset some of the challenges we have with getting volunteers.
So the location that you guys have that everyone knows here in Richmond, is that is that the location that handles all of those counties?
No. So we have partners. We have a facility in South Hill in the southern part of our footprint to serve our rural counties. We also work with one of our partners called Healthy Harvest, and they serve the 30 some odd agencies in the northern neck. And then west over in Farmville, there's a great agency called Faces that helps us serve the western part of our footprint. And while we're at Road Miller, that's where our headquarters is. A lot of our hub and spoke for Meals on Wheels happen in the Tri-Cities, helping Powhatan, Charles City, you name it. We've got a number of hubs.
Aaron is here with us from Feedmore. We're talking all the great things you're doing on the Mike program. So during the dark days of the pandemic, what did you guys learn coming through that you had never done before? But all of a sudden now we're like, hey, you know what? We kind of like doing that thing right there.
You really know how to be more efficient. I think that's one of the things, right? We employed a lot of chefs. We had a lot of chefs come out and help us that were their restaurants were either closed or shuttered or had limited hours. We learned to make do with what's essential versus what's nice to have.
Did you really quickly, and I don't want to interrupt you with that one, did you think that they were essential, that you were lean before?
We're lean, yeah, very
You
lean.
thought you were lean before.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden the pandemic happened and it took it to a whole nother level.
Creates a lot of operational stress. The term essential employee, right? Essential worker. Well, the governor and deems food banks as essential employees. So we didn't skip a beat. There was no work remotely opportunity when you've got a kitchen and a warehouse. An 18-wheeler is not going to show up to our house,
right?
And
no, somebody has to go there.
So we've got you got to have a physical presence there. So it's really. I think the term hero gets thrown around way too much, but I think the folks that are there day in and day out doing that kind of work really are doing heroic activities.
One of the things we always talk about is culture and organization. How does leadership set culture that is good? And then not just that, but when we were coming through the pandemic, when people were here, there, and everywhere.
Sure. Well, right now, our CEO, Doug Pick, we're working on our third strategy. So he's been at this for 11 years now. And the last strategy we worked at is Mission Plus, a culture of continuous improvement. Our senior leadership team and the folks we work with, we're always trying to do what we do, but do it better. The second leg of that stool is being an employer of choice. People, whether you're a nonprofit or for-profit, people want to work for an organization that's developing their leaders, developing their people, and making a meaningful impact. And you're going to be able to see that not just today, but 100 years from now. And then lastly, food bank of the future. Whether it's a food bank or a business, people want to kind of have an eye on what's out ahead. So data, information, technology, making sure we're utilizing the best tools to take back to that lean comment and stretching those dollars. We stretch to the breaking point of dollars and food to make sure that we're doing this highly leveraged to do what we can do with the limited resources we have to work with.
One of the things you guys are in the business of, sometimes no one wants to be in that position, but it's a delicate balance of helping people without hurting people's ego.
Yeah, it's a challenge. Obviously we're looking for people that raise their hand first and look for those soft nudges. We work not just with food organizations and food distribution, but with wraparound services, right? So sometimes somebody might come in, one of the sad statistics out there, Mike, is I've heard this multiple times, but only, about 50% of Americans only have about $500 in the bank account.
Yes.
Right? Time of need, somewhere around that category. So whether it's a medical bill, a car breaks down, you've got to replace your HVAC system, whatever that might be, those folks are in, there's that spiral, right, where you can't get out of that. So we work not just with food organizations, with healthcare providers to do screening for food insecurity. So when they see somebody and they ask them the kind of questions to say, when's the last time you had this kind of meal and this, that, and the other? We had a meeting yesterday with our friends at Anthem and some of the health folks around the state. Those referrals come to us, and then we're able to put those folks in, provide them with boxes at the clinic they're at, and then put them in touch with the agency that's closest to them. So a lot of that's soft. It's not just hand out, but it's a handout.
One of the things we always talk about is the children aspect. What were you guys doing during the time when the kids are at home and now they're back, and that lunchtime thing is hard, and kids are on the weekend making sure that kids have food on the weekend or people have food on the weekends?
Absolutely. Well, a couple things. When we talk about, who's food insecure, who's hungry, it's about, on average, about 1 in 10, 1 in 11 people in our service area. So you think about that, that's a lot. When you talk about kids, that's 1 in 6. 1 in 6 kids in our region is considered food insecure.
Wow.
So there's three main legs of our stool. We have school markets where we'll roll into a cafeteria or an auditorium and set up basically a farmer's market where the teachers and the counselors will be part of that solution. And we get feedback, Mike, that says a lot of times those parents are the only time they're in the schools when they're there for the school market. So it's a great way for connect administrators, teachers, and families. The other thing that we do is weekend backpacks, to your point. We distribute about 2,000 backpacks every Thursday for Friday distribution. 2,000. So that is 6 meals, 2 breakfasts, 2 lunches, and 2 dinners for the weekend. And I'll tell you, we put them in a drawstring bag. It's not branded. It's very, some anonymity to who gets this support. But our friends, communities, and schools, the school resource officers, and the teachers are the ones that provide that to kids as they're leaving on Fridays. And the thing about the drawstring bags, Mike, that I found interesting and sad at the same time is how many kids are in between households during the weekend. So that their ability to take that food with them does so much. And then lastly, our friends in McKesson helped us out last year with a bus. And that bus is now going out around the community to places where we don't normally have partnerships, and going and driving up to might be a housing complex or one of our third-party providers, like YMCA out in Goochland. And then those kids will come in and shop. And with the stories you hear about kids coming off the bus with fruits and vegetables saying, "Mom, look, we got some real food." It really hits you right here.
It does. And so we're one of Mike Aaron is here with us. We were talking. So the conversation that we had before that, changing the world ain't cheap, easy, or free. You're in the relationship business because we got to generate revenue so that we can help people. You guys have your staff right there. Let's talk about the volunteers, how important they are to you. And then we're going to talk about the people who support you on the financial side. I'm going to give a shout out to my man Mark Smith.
Absolutely.
And all the great things he does out there.
I got Midas of Richmond already underlined.
Right
here,
there,
I got my notes here.
We've had that conversation.
That's right.
Because, he shows the bar. When somebody comes to you and gives you money, just because they know that you are going to do the right thing with it.
That just happened this morning. In fact, I just made a comment on social, on LinkedIn, I think it was. Every morning I come in and check what gifts came in online. Well, we just had one this morning. A couple $100 came in from somebody who just apparently had their car serviced at Midas and just wanted to thank Mark for the great work that he did. And then in turn comes back to us and then really goes back into the community. So it's a full circle. Cars don't take care of themselves in the communities. That's not a commercial, but
it is truly. So you're talking to business leaders every day.
Absolutely.
What is it about the community here in Richmond that's not a hard? It's not a hard ask. There are businesses and business people who care about that.
It's good. First of all, it's good for business. I think we all know this. For employee engagement, coming and volunteering. You mentioned your first question, I think, was around volunteering. So we have about 100 staff. Okay, but we have 200 volunteers a day plus. Some days we have almost 250 volunteers.
Wow.
Making, chopping, cutting, packaging, delivering, sorting. You name it. If it's involved with food, we have volunteers that can do that. We also have some office volunteers to help us out. So companies, if you're looking for a way to engage your employees a little more deeply in the community, everyone's heard the terms corporate social responsibility, environmental, social, and governance, all these buzzwords, but really it's about helping your community. And if you want to have your employees feel good about where they're working, be a leader and come and check us out. And not just us, but any organization that has some volunteer opportunities, I would encourage you to do it. So volunteers for us is huge. If we didn't have volunteers, we would not be able to fulfill our mission, period. End of story. From a financial standpoint, we talk about the leveraging power of the network, right? So we get a lot of food donated to us, but it can't just sit there. It's got to move, right? That movement comes through trucks, the gas, the fuel, the partner on the other end that's there, the logistics side of that organization, the food preparation part. So our budget this year is around $20 million. About 13 of that, $13 million is how much we have to raise to make sure that we meet our mission, okay? So that's each and every single year. That's a lot. It's a lot to do, but our community really takes care of ourselves. And the thing about Richmond, I think, is we were joking earlier about there's only 18 people.
There's only
18 people, and there's 2 of us here, so 16 of you are
16
listening.
Are left, so doing your part.
Yeah, thank you very much. But really, I think the great thing about Richmond is it's big enough to have the oomph of a big city, but small enough where you create those connections and then there's also people like you. People like you who connect those that don't know each other.
In a short period of time, it is something that to go to see Mark Smith on TV, and then all of a sudden to get to know him, and with him, then I see the impact that he has on Feedmore and Goochland. and Shalom Farms,
Shalom,
and
Henrico, yeah.
those things that impact. But we see that over and over. And I talk to business owners every day who understand their corporate responsibility. They are out there making a change. When we talked about the price of food a bit ago, and when we looked at what happened during the pandemic, the price of fuel costs, everything went up. So I guess that puts the strain on you guys right there. How do you ride that out?
Oh, how long have we got?
Exactly.
How long we got? So a couple things here. One, supply chain, right? I was just reading an article today about Panama Canal getting backed up. Last couple years ago, Suez Canal, right? We got what's going on in Ukraine. These things that are happening globally affect us locally, right? Supply chains can really get strained by things that are going on around the world. We just got to be mindful of that. So it's nice to be able to shore up as much as we can our local supply chain. We've got great support from our retailers, fabulous support, but they're strained too, right? So they're not going to, they're in the money, they're in the business to make money, not just to give away things. But we've been fortunate and very blessed. I'll say that we're blessed at Feedmore to have great relationships with with Purdue. Last year they gave us 3 million pounds of chicken, for gosh sakes, and we're able to use that in our community, but also trade it.
Oh, trade. I love trade. Shout out to all the folks out there trading things. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
So is that Purdue local?
So,
Or do you guys get help from around the country?
No, it's local. So just southeast of Petersburg, down in the Hopewell area, there's Miss Prince George. There's a plant down there that does all the packaging and mixing. So they bring a truckload a week to us, and that just adds up. And we're able to use that and put it back in our mobile distributions. Anytime someone's been to one of our pantries, they're going to see Purdue Chicken. Great partner, huge. There's a family presence here. I can't say enough great things about them. But also, whether it's, I'm not going to name all the retailers, but I don't want to mislead anybody else.
We don't want anybody's feelings to get hurt.
But wherever you shop, I'm just pointing at the camera here. Wherever you shop, I almost guarantee you that they have a relationship with Feedmore or a food assistance organization. So anytime you hear the roundup at the register, that stuff comes back to our community, whether it's Kroger, Food Line, all those places, Wegmans. It is September's Hunger Action Month, so you'll probably see a lot of that where people are shopping if they're asked to round up and help the local food bank. That's
I didn't know that. Yeah. I didn't know that was the month.
Yes, September is Hunger Action Month, so you'll see a lot more stuff out in the community around that. So just be aware.
Really quickly, as we get you out of here, when people think of food insecurities, they may think of Richmond City or the rural areas. We always hear about food deserts, but a lot of times we don't think of places like Chesterfield or Henrico. Yeah. And you said sometimes they have those issues and problems too.
Right, absolutely. Well, I mean, Chesterfield, I think there's 20 some odd agencies that are doing helping food folks. I mean, Chesterfield Food Bank's one of the largest. Okay,
so really quickly, so you didn't know how this interview was going to go, but you've seen the other ones. It's crazy for me. So I used to broadcast in Chester, and during the pandemic, I would ride, and the line would be. Yeah. It seemed a mile or two long. People waiting in line, and I used to hear people say, "Oh, look at the cars that those people are in." I'm like, we're going through something that we've never gone through before in our lifetime. These people are getting help.
Yeah.
And you always ask, like the food bank, how do you guys do it? Because it's a machine.
Yeah.
But there always is more. There's always more people to help.
Well, think about our listeners. How many people have bought a new car in the last couple of years? You might have a nice car, but guess what? If you and your spouse or somebody lost their job, guess what? Your income you still got the car. You got the car payment, or you might have, had outpatient surgery that kind of went sideways, and now you can't go back to work. People don't know, right? And I think one of the things we learned about business is, withhold judgment. Be curious, not judgmental. Remember Ted Lasso? One of my favorite quotes: "Be curious, not judgmental," because we don't know what's going on in that person's life. And when we talk about the suburbs. Right. We all have some stereotypes. We all do around certain areas, whether it's rural or urban or whatever. We just don't know. And I would suggest to your listeners and those that are supporting nonprofits, have some grace for those that are in our community and really try and be mindful that trying to help them out, not being judgmental.
What is the coolest part about working in a nonprofit?
I'll say nonprofits in general, but Feedmore is the only place I've actually run into work. I've been in business, I've been in education, I've worked with startups, but every day you get to see the impact. The fruits you get to see the fruits, no pun intended, of your labor, and that is it's a feel good. And I know for folks that are wherever you are in your business journey, at some point, I just finished reading a book last year called The Second Mountain by David Brooks. And if you've not read it, take a look at it. But it talks about the second half of your career is really about helping others, right? Because once you get to that first mountain, you're like, Was that it?
That's
You know,
it.
you're looking around, you're like, well, there's another mountain over there. And the second part of your life is really, if you can devote that to helping others, it's so much more fulfilling. You feel really good about doing it.
Well, Mike, I told you we bring the rock stars in here, talking, dropping nuggets of knowledge. We'd like to thank you. How can people find out information about Feedmore?
www.feedmore.org, all the socials. Just type in Feedmore, Richmond, Virginia. You'll find all the information you need.
A person who needs help right there, who's food insecure, what's the first step that you would recommend to them to
Go
get
to that
help?
website and get contact with the local agency, and then call our hunger hotline. English, Spanish, and always have translation services. I know we're speaking to you in English today, but if you got somebody in your neighborhood that needs help, we can help you.
One of Mike, we talked to the best and brightest. We got to go now. Take care. Thanks.